So is Skirk a good pull right before snezhnaya? We've had Skirk for over a year now, and she's been great over that time. But now that we have more DPSs from Cry that are mostly stronger than Skirk, and that we have the literal cryo region coming up soon, is Skirk gonna gain value after snezhnaya so she becomes even better than where she's at right now? Or will she be Powercrept even more than she is right now? In this video, we'll be discussing that, and then I'll give you a final assessment whether or not I think Skirk is a good pull right now or not. Before we continue that though, if you're trying to get Skirk or Constellations or any other characters, I would recommend getting Genesis crystals from LDshop.gg. LDshop is a cheap, fast, and safe game top-up website that offers top-ups for many games, including Genshin Impact. As you guys can see here, these are the offers they have for Genshin, and all of them are cheaper than the official game store, starting off from 15% cheaper and even more. For example, we can see the 3,280 Genesis crystals offer. It costs $50 in the official game store, but here it only costs $39.10. That's 10.89 or more than 21% saved by using LDshop. They also have many other things like bundles, character outfits, Welkins, and stuff like that. But yeah, when you want to buy, just click on the offer you'd like to choose. For example, I'm gonna buy the 300 crystals offer. You only need to enter your server region and user ID. Obviously, make sure they're right, and then click on top up. And then you just choose your payment method, and then enter your details, and then just pay. Shortly after that, you'll just receive the crystals in your account. And right now, if you use my link, you'll get a 15% off coupon and also an extra 5% off. That can save you up to $50. They also have more cool things on the website. For example, if you spend more than $80, that can allow you to win a free Welkin. You can go and check it out yourself. Click the link in the description or the pinned comment and top up now. So for Skirk's playstyle and her kit in general, there really isn't much to talk about here. I mean, it is a little complicated, but in general, it's basically just like an auto attack main DPS. That's basically what you're gonna do with Skirk. You just skill normal attack and then use your burst whenever you have enough stacks, and that's pretty much it. So in general, my opinion, I would say she's a pretty simple character to play. As long as you just learn like the basic right combos, you'll be fine with Skirk and you don't really need to think about anything else. Now, if we're talking about her power level, when she got released, she was like top 2 DPSs. I think she was the best at some point before like more Moika combos got released, but in general she was heavily broken and she was as good as main DPSs get. But right now with the release of the Cry region, you just cannot hide that she has been Powercrept a little bit. If we compare her to the newer DPSs like the Flynns, the Neffers, and especially Zebai, we can see Skirk is nowhere near the best DPS right now. She's definitely Powercrept by so many other main DPSs, and she mainly falls at like the 5th place. It's probably just like Zebai, Moika, and then Neffer, maybe Flynns, and then Skirk. That's probably the right order for like the best main DPSs. And honestly, even the difference between someone like Skirk and Zebai is quite a bit. It's not like just a small difference. It's usually like 30k to like 40k, which is pretty considerable. So that's just in a year. Honestly, Skirk is slowly being Powercrept. Now, does that mean you just cannot clear with Skirk right now? No. You can clear stuff with Skirk pretty easily, even in content where it's like pretty much just tailored made for Cry and Lunar reactions. Skirk can still clear in a decently comfortable way. She's definitely not as good as she used to be, but she can still clear pretty well. But the point is she's definitely lagging a little behind in terms of like comparing her to newer units. Now, for a few more problems about Skirk, the first one is just simply her teams. Even at those DPS rankings that I showed you, where she's not, like, obviously she's not at the top anymore, for you to even reach those DPS numbers, you still need her premium teams. So without her premium teams, she's definitely gonna fall off, like, way more significantly. And when I say premium teams, usually the best thing you'd want to go for is probably just Skirk, Fiorina, Escoffier, and then someone like Yellen or anyone else. Fiorina and Escoffier being the most important 2 units, and especially Escoffier. Escoffier is gonna be a rerun with her soon. I made a video about her if you want to check it out. But nonetheless, you do need 4 5-star units for you to maximize her team, or even be close to her maximum potential, or at least 3. Now, this is sort of like a trend even with like newer DPSs. Most of them do need at least like 2 5-star units to be fully maximized. So it's not really exclusive to Skirk. But the problem is you do need those premium characters and you still don't get like the top level numbers in terms of DPS. So it's not like she's a free-to-play friendly character who can compete with like non-free-to-play friendly top DPSs. No, if you don't have those characters already, you still need to get them, and then you still won't have like the top numbers that we have in the game right now. So that's probably a big problem with Skirk at this point right now. You need heavy investment for you to get good DPS numbers, but not the best DPS numbers. And if we're comparing it in terms of like pure value, let's say you don't have any of those characters or any of the Cry characters, would you rather spend and get like 3 5-stars and build a Skirk team, or get 3 5-stars and build a Cry team? team? The obvious answer will probably be a not cry team because you're just getting more out of your primo gems. So that's the current problem with Skirk right now. Her value, even in terms of like primo gems to damage value, is not great. The second biggest problem or like fear about Skirk, honestly, is going to be snezhnaya. Now, there are two ways you can look at it. Obviously, you can think that since this is the cryo region coming up, Skirk is going to gain more value and she's going to become stronger. She might get new supports. Enemies are going to be tailor-made for her more since she's a cryo DPS and stuff like that. So her value is going to increase and she might catch up to other DPSs. And that's the optimistic way to look at this. And honestly, that's what I would have said like maybe 1 year ago or 2 years ago. But the problem is with the last two regions, Not Cry and Natlan, we've been seeing some heavily restricted mechanics in terms of like newer characters. So in Natlan, we had like the whole Night Soul thing, which basically locked all of Natlan just together and that was it. And you simply just couldn't use a lot of Natlan characters without at least 1 or 2 Natlan supports, which just simply wasn't good. And then we have even more restrictions within Not Cry region, honestly. Just the whole lunar DPS stuff and how they just work with very specific supports, how the reactions couldn't even be enabled if certain characters are not there. It's just simply crazy. So judging by the latest pattern from Hoyo, do you guys think they're just going to release another simple cryo DPS with their new supports? And then that new cryo DPS is just going to be competing directly with Skirk? Honestly, probably not. I think if they release newer cryo main DPSs, which will definitely be the case, they will be on like a completely different niche from Skirk, even though they're both cryo, but they'll probably be focused on some sort of new reaction, for example, let's say superconduct or something like that, or maybe some completely new mechanic. And their supports will be also tailored for that new mechanic. So Skirk will probably not be able to take advantage out of them, which means with snezhnaya coming out, honestly, I think the higher probability is that Skirk will be Powercrept even more rather than her getting value out of snezhnaya. So yeah, that's my doomsday opinion about Skirk. Now let's move on a bit to the brighter side. Let's talk about the good things that you might get out of Skirk. The first good way you can look at Skirk is that her teams are a little different than most of the top DPS teams in the game. As I said before, she is ranked at around like the 5th place right now in terms of like the best DPS teams and the best main DPSs. But if we look at that list, 3 teams out of 5 are going to share the same character, which is Columbina. And Columbina is honestly going to be a key character in terms of like those teams being as good as they are. If you remove Columbina, a lot of those teams will fall straight under Skirk's premium team. So Columbina is going to be a necessary piece for Zibai, Nefer, and Flens altogether. Now, what does that mean is that in content where you need 2 teams, which is obviously most of the hard content, or even 3 teams like in the Stygian, for example, you simply won't be able to have those teams together at their full strengths. Now, you can have replacements like Aino, for example, or whatever, but they won't be as strong. So if you want to get a main DPS that's like completely independent from the whole like lunar stuff, then Skirk is going to be a decent option, a very decent option actually. The best option for that is still going to be Moika, but if you already have her, you don't like her for some reason or just whatever reason, Skirk is going to be a pretty good replacement and she's going to do pretty well. So in terms of like real ranking, in my opinion, I'd say Skirk is more like top 3 rather than top 5 if we look at the actual teams that you can build with the current characters we have. And honestly, that's like the biggest selling point for Skirk. If you need multiple teams, like 2 teams for the Abyss or 3 for Stygian, then honestly Skirk is not a bad option at all, and that's probably one of the best reasons you can think of for getting Skirk, at least at this point in the game right now. Now, the second possible or maybe cope thing about Skirk is that she does have some potential to grow. Now, it's not big potential, but she definitely does still have some potential to grow. The reason for that is that in most of her teams, they just feel non-complete at this point in the game right now, honestly. I mean, like her super premium best team is just going to be, as I said before, Skirk, Fiorina, Escoffier, and then someone like Yellen, for example, or just whatever. But as I'm saying, someone like Yellen, it just means that there's not a single character who's like perfect, like the other 2 characters that you can just use for Skirk for a completely perfect team that's going to be able to buffer, just deal their own super good damage or whatever. So yeah, in my opinion, Skirk still has an empty 4th slot sort of for her teams that might potentially be filled during snezhnaya. Now, as I said before, I think most of snezhnaya's characters are not going to be direct upgrades to Skirk because they're probably going to come out with like newer mechanics and stuff like that. But it wouldn't be too optimistic to expect a single character who's going to be able to also buff Skirk in a better way than the characters you have right now. And then you can play like Fiorina, Escoffier, and then that 4th character, and it's going to be a complete team for Skirk that might gain her some extra DPS. Will that happen for sure? No, I do not know, but is that possible? Yeah. So in my opinion, the story is not over yet for Skirk, and she definitely still has some potential to grow, at least a little bit. Alright, so knowing all of that, with the good sides and the bad sides, let me tell you a final conclusion of what I personally think you should do with Skirk. So when you should get Skirk if you need a main DPS like right now, at this second. You just, as I said before, need a third team or a second team for you to clear content and you need main DPS, Skirk can do that. So in that case, you can go for Skirk. The second condition is that you need to have Escoffier, and you need to have Fear enough. If you're going for Skirk without those characters, then it's definitely not a good investment, because if you're going for Skirk without Escoffier especially, then your damage is just going to be completely out of the picture, honestly. It just completely won't be worth it at all. Obviously, unless you like her, but that's a completely different topic. But like meta-wise, if you're trying to get Skirk, then Escoffier is just going to be super necessary, at least at this point in the game right now. And yeah, the third reason is that you really need to like her personally, because if you're getting Skirk purely for the meta, then there are probably just better options out there. Even outside of like the lunar meta, you can probably just get Moika at some point when she reruns, and that's going to be better. So if you just don't like her as a character, honestly, I see it as there's no point in getting her. So if you fulfill those conditions, at least like 2 of them, then I would recommend getting Skirk, because at the end of the day, she's not a bad character. She still clears easily most of the content, and you're probably going to be able to clear with her at least for a while. Even if it's not as easy as right now, you're probably still going to be able to clear. So she's definitely not a bad character to get. If you have the requirements for her, like the characters that build, and you still want her, then go for it. But if not, and you're not interested in her as like a character specifically, and you're just thinking like, oh, should I get Skirk as like an investment because snezhnaya is coming out? I'd say in that case, no. It's probably better to just wait it out a little bit and then see what snezhnaya just brings at a whole. Or if you need a main DPS right now, you can get one of like the not cry DPSs. I think Nefer is rerunning soon, so you can probably just go for that in general, and you're gonna spend the same amount of primo gems as Skirk and just get better damage. So it's an easier bet and just simply less risk. So yeah, at this point in the game, I think Skirk is probably just a skip unless you really like her and you have the characters for her ready. But if you want the best option and you want to optimize your account, then probably skip Skirk. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video. Peace.